What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, and today I'm talking about Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 5, and boy am I freaking hyped to dig into this. Now first and foremost, please do me a favor and give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because this was a very difficult video to make. Now what I mean by that is not just the difficulty of beating these bosses and exploring these spooky dungeons and stuff, but additionally, this game is gorgeous. The graphics themselves, this game is just so high resolution and high frame rates, it actually confused my recording software. Like, just trying to record this footage was a bit of a pain, but now that I'm here editing it all together, it's really giving me a chance to go back and experience just how insane of a remake this is. But what I want to do in this video is something very specific. I actually want to try and break down the idea of Demon's Souls and why I think that you should try this game even if normally you don't enjoy hard experiences. Now the biggest thing to know is that yes, this is a 100% remake. Every single brick, every single enemy, every single time a spider pops out of the ceiling, this is a complete remake of the original PlayStation 3 game of Demon's Souls. But it's also a refinement. It almost feels like a sequel of sorts, and what I mean by that is the fact that this manages to take a lot of the ideas that were sort of started in Demon's Souls and makes them work. Like, one of the biggest things is, I played the original version back in the day. The controls were decent, like it wasn't just a terrible shoddy game, but I definitely died a lot of deaths in the PlayStation 3 version because things just weren't perfect. The primary upgrade to this game is this time around, it's not just the fact that it has some insane art, it's not just that the monsters actually look fantastic, it is the fact that it's easier to control yourself. Now something I want to really try and convey here is, I think there's this kind of misconception around Dark Souls games. A lot of times people see the compilations of people dying or falling off cliffs or a random trap instantly killing you, and I think a lot of people assume that the Souls series is unfair, that if you play them, it's all about memorization. The only weapon in your arsenal is trying to figure out where every single trap and every single enemy is, and then just running through the exact course, when that's not really the case. The biggest thing that makes this series so fun, and in my opinion so incredibly addictive, is the fun of trial and error. It's trying to figure things out completely on your own. Playing this game and exploring these twisted landscapes of evil dragons and fallen soldiers and stuff, the biggest thing that really makes it where you can survive, it just comes down to the fact that going into this and trying to learn every single aspect of this. And really, I have to say that part of the advantage of this being such a faithful remake is the fact that if you have any questions, there is a huge amount of knowledge already online. There is so many times where you can just Google and figure things out. Now you may be thinking to yourself that conceptually this game seems fun, the graphics are definitely insane, but what's the point? Like, what is the major motivation of Demon's Souls specifically? Well, the goal is actually pretty simple, which is that we are, as the name implies, a lost soul. But instead of this being a bad thing, it's kind of a good thing, because it means that you can just die again and again and again and keep coming back. At the beginning of the game, we die an initial death, which lands us in the Nexus, which is basically this like in-between realm. And from here, this is basically your hub world. It allows you to pick which areas you want to go to next, which areas you want to explore, and there's basically like 5 separate big chapters of the game that you can progress through. They're like major dungeons with lots of different bosses. But what's really fun about this, and what really kind of makes it so freaking appealing to me, is that whenever you want, you can go back to a bonfire, teleport back to the Nexus, and just choose a different one of these worlds. So a lot of times, if I was progressing one place and I got stuck on a boss and I got frustrated or something, I could very easily just go back, upgrade my character with some souls I'd collected, and then try a different path. Now this does bring me to a point that's incredibly important, which is the major thing I love and the major thing I do still hate about only Demon's Souls. I feel like a lot of the Dark Souls games, they balance difficulty perfectly. Like, if you die, it's always your fault. It's you who fell off a cliff or drank a poison potion or something. But in Demon's Souls, at times it feels like it goes a little bit too far with the punishments. Like, one of the major things that definitely drove me nuts is every time you die in this game, it takes you back to the previous bonfire. Now that makes sense. Of course, you need to have some sort of like checkpoint system, but what gets frustrating about this is that sometimes there will be a boss really far away. Sometimes you'll get all the way through a dungeon section and you finally discover the boss completely by accident, and then he kills you in literally seconds, and now you're going back to the very beginning of this area, which means you need to fight all the way through it again. There were straight up times where I found a new boss, I started fighting him, I fell over dead, and it took me like 7 to 20 minutes to try and fight all the way back there and do another attempt. This is more than just frustrating, it feels just unfair. Like, it feels like it's trying to exhaust you instead of entertain you. Now, on the other side of the coin, the part I wanted to bring up is the fact that this is still a very, very well balanced action RPG, and the role-playing game aspect of this is important. And what I mean is that if you want, since I was just mentioning how there are just dungeons full of bad guys like evil miners and crazy explosive demon worms and stuff, by hacking these guys up, you do get a bunch of the currency called souls, and whenever you want, going back to the Nexus, you can upgrade your different stats like strength or dexterity or your endurance. That way you have more stamina to try and just run and dodge or just swing your weapon more, or what I love is just stacking a lot of vitality and having a gigantic health bar. But what's good about this is I do enjoy an RPG that encourages in a subtle way the ability to grind. If you get stuck on a boss and you just keep dying and you don't want to Google what his weakness is or something, I do like that it's possible to just go and kill enemies again and again and again until you're strong enough to progress. I like that there are these separate avenues. Demon's Souls as a game in general is an experience that feels so daunting at the start because there is just so many different paths and bad guys, and there's just so much trying to slow you down. But what's always been the best aspect of it is that as you start to learn, as you start to like build your mental map of the shortcuts, the different ways you can go, the cool weapons you find, and then start to try and customize them at the blacksmith, it feels like you're crafting your own personal journey in this already established world. This really is kind of why I love this remake so much, is because it manages to instill the original spirit of it. Like, I've seen a lot of bad remakes. I've seen games that tried to change up the physics or rewrite the story or something like that. Like, what is the best part about the Demon's Souls remake is just the word remake. This is the original game with the original energy, with the original soul in it, excuse the bad joke, and yet just still here, perfectly instilled and still completely ready to butcher you. I love the boss design. I love the dungeon design. I love the enemies, but most importantly, I just love when I'm going into an area and I discover that giant new freaking tool that's going to let me progress, whether it be a magic sword or some sort of crazy new weakness. I love that this game just gives you everything right at the start and says, figure it out. This is a game where Googling stuff is kind of important. If you get stuck, ask questions. If you find yourself just getting smashed to the ground by a giant suit of armor that's shooting magic and stuff, don't be afraid to just ask some questions. The other Dark Souls games by comparison are just much easier than this, mostly because they tried to telegraph where to go and what to do. Like, a lot of times there would be a lot of subtle hints trying to direct you down the perfect path, whereas I really feel like Demon's Souls, it is an entire universe that's already constructed to just absolutely ruin you, and yet it just says, welcome, here's the fun, have it for yourself. I like that about that, but this is going to kick a lot of people's butts. Instead of getting frustrated, treat this as an all-new journey. If you have bought a PlayStation 5, I highly recommend this game, but I definitely can see how some people are going to see that game over screen a lot and get a little bit stuck. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving the Demon's Souls remake a 10 out of 10. Okay, so I have a feeling that a few people are going to be offended that I'm giving this a perfect score, but here's my main reasoning. The game is a perfect remake. It sets out to improve and beautify a classic experience, and they absolutely nailed it. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. For those who might be curious, I didn't really die that much filming this video. The main thing is that once you kind of get used to like your particular set of items and how to dodge roll and kind of figure out the new pacing, this game is pretty easy to survive as long as you don't just, completely get trapped. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.